This is Jalapeno Milk. I've been having the itch to talk about certain things on the channel again. I've been taking an extended break, but I'm going to come back and try to do some more content that's suitable for anything else but live streaming, since that's apparently not the way to grow your channel, and I'm interested in doing that. So today I wanted to talk about the Insomniac Games Twitter account and something they said about PlayStation 5 Miles Morales game. So they're talking this morning about many art assets have been updated to take advantage of the PS5 console's horsepower. Better looking characters with improved skin, eyes, hair, and facial animation, ray traced reflections and ambient shadows, improved lighting, more pedestrians and vehicles stretching into the distance. Optional performance mode for a targeted 60 frames per second frame rate, near instant loading, 3D audio, dual sense controllers, haptic feedback, 3 new suits, new photo mode features, and even new trophies. So one thing that really bothered me about this was optional performance mode for targeted 60 frames per second frame rate. I point this out specifically because this is a new console generation. They're asking $500 for the new hardware, and we're still getting this targeted nonsense. If you don't know what targeted 60 frames per second means in this context, it's that they're not going to lock it down. Apparently the pedestrians and vehicles are more important than the moment-to-moment gameplay being silky smooth. So I find this to be an issue because, like I said, this is new hardware. This is a new console. This is an old game. This ran on the PS4, silky, buttery smooth, and the best they could do is throw these new reflections, the ray tracing, skin, eye, hair, pedestrians and vehicles. Now the pedestrians and vehicles, they're nice visual candy, but I'd really rather have the 60 frames per second locked down. I don't want the stuttering nonsense. I think you could definitely get rid of some of these things and let people enjoy a locked 60 frames per second. It's smoother, it's more truer to the character, even in that Spider-Man's a very fluid and moving character, that kind of thing. So I don't know why so many developers are excited about these little technical details no one notices in the gameplay. Are you guys playing the games that you're developing? I begin to wonder. I think a more lasting impression on a video game would be not necessarily the amount of cars I don't notice in the distance, but how smooth the game was, if there was slowdowns, if there was stuttering, if there was frame ripping, that kind of thing. So I think for me, I really hope that that paradigm shifts and that we get developers that are more focused on how the game plays as a whole rather than just trying to make a technical showcase or for a launch title. We don't need that. The game's been proven, it's a good game, and we're going to see more stuff like that from the developer in the future. So what is exciting, despite all that, is the solid state drive, which is supposed to be near instant loading. So how does this translate in the PS5 Spider-Man game? From what I've heard is that the swinging will be a lot faster. There's going to be and hopefully some variable speeds during the swinging. I thought the swinging was mostly good in the PS4 entry, but there was very little variability in how Spider-Man moved. He had canned speeds, so to say, that the game decided beforehand. There was no momentum, as I think was very important in the PS2 video game, and why I think that game is still fondly remembered for nailing the swinging in Spider-Man. Another really good example of the solid-state drive and why it's so important is the Ratchet & Clank game, and that they could jump through these different universes and stuff and load up all these new environments near instantly. I think that'll be a big game changer, one of the things that I haven't seen the Xbox talked about. Xbox seems more a brute force entry, as is usual. More replacement for displacement is very much an American ideal and is reflected in the American and Western development of the console, however that turns out. Some of the other features promised in this that are good is the dual sense controllers, haptic feedback, some new suits, a new photo mode, and some trophies, etc. 3D audio is pretty cool. As far as improved skin, eyes, hair, and facial animation, those are nice, but what I really want to see, and again, I want to hammer this home, is I want the smooth gameplay. I don't want a variable, sometimes good, sometimes not so good, swinging around and frame rate jumping all over the place. I want that stuff locked down. That's going to be more impressive than new skin, eyes, hair, facial animations. I just don't care about that stuff. Some of the dullest parts of the game were, of course, the Mary Jane scene. Imagine sitting down to relax with some swinging and stuff, and the game wants you to go walk around as a reporter. Some dumb stuff like that Mary Jane's missions ended up being. The only good mission in that game being the one where Mary Jane can point out enemies for Spider-Man to web up and all that, but largely nonsense and killed the pacing of the game, which is what it should have been. Any Mary Jane mission should have been digging into the story, but I digress. Ray traced reflections, that's all good, and the ambient shadows and all this. Gladly take some of the stuff that I didn't notice and put it in the backseat where most people will notice, and even the casual observer would notice frame rate in this game. The improved lighting, more pedestrians and vehicles, vehicles stretching into the distance. Here's what I'd like to propose for this game. I don't need more pedestrians. I don't want more vehicles stretching into the distance. I don't care about the draw distance. I care about maybe 30, 40 feet in front of me, however that is in the video game. Obviously I don't want stuff to look crazy in the distance, but what I really would rather see is the frame rate be smooth. Call me a PC elitist if you must, but I do with 2 or 3 missing pedestrians and 5 or 6 vehicles gone if it means having that smooth experience. That is worth so much more, I think, in the grand scheme of things than all these technical details that may be impressive in the launch bylines and stuff. We've got 1,700 cars at any given time. I don't care about that stuff. Focus on making a good game and keep your marketing people away from touting these technical details that actually bring down the experience from messing with the game. One of the issues I think that could easily be rectified or taken advantage of with this new entry is the colors. The PS4 Spider-Man had kind of an orange look to the suit, the standard advanced suit, whatever that was that the main canonical choice is. It was kind of orange, and I think a deeper red on the Spider-Man costume would do a lot more for the visual presentation of the game than all these extra cars and ambient shadows and improved lighting and stuff like that. Add a little corners if you must, but this is a brand new console. It's a new generation. If we're having to make these concessions already, we can't even hit 60 frames on a last-gen game. Is it really worth the upgrade that these systems are going to cost? It's a huge investment, and obviously the model seems to be to do a mid-generation refresh. PS5 is obviously a huge machine, so it's going to be interesting to see what happens with this stuff. It's just my take on it. I think art direction is a lot more interesting than the specifics on the horsepower being used on all these different cars and stuff like that. So we'll have to see. Yeah, it's an interesting look into what's going on with the PS5. Obviously, there's a lot of excitement going on right now. The pre-orders have been an absolute fiasco, and if you've been lucky to get one, hang on to it. Keep an eye on your emails. There's talk of shortages and things like that. The Xbox launch, or pre-orders, excuse me, the pre-orders for the Xbox have not been much better. A lot of people having some confusion on that, and people even buying the Xbox One X on accident. Obviously, there's FOMO, there's fear of missing out, there's all this kind of stuff going on, and people are excited. People want to be excited, and I don't think a targeted 60 frames per second is doing it for me specifically. I'm just not happy to hear about this performance mode at all. I mean, it's a PS5. It should be performance mode no matter what you're doing, right? It's a new system, huge. Got ray tracing, giga teraflops, solid state drive, all this really cool stuff. There are some other issues and concerns. There's a lot of hubbub and a lot of interest in, a lot of retweets actually from Insomniac Games concerning the representation, Puerto Rican flags and stuff like that they put in the intro video, which is great. Representation is important. The first game had rainbow flags and stuff like that. But I'm really more concerned with, if you're making this game, if you're charging for a remaster, let's hit that locked 60 frames per second. I don't care what the marketing sheet has on it with how many cars and all that stuff. Again, I just want a smooth gameplay experience. Make a good game and then worry about the representation of stuff. The only representation that really should matter in a Spider-Man game is that spider emblem on his chest. That's much more important than the Puerto Rican flag, the rainbow flag. We're not buying the game for that. We're not buying anything but a Spider-Man game here. So please, I hope these developers keep that in mind more than anything else when they're pitching this thing. In a lot of ways, that spider emblem is much more important than the other flags that I've talked about. Anybody can pick this game up and want to be a hero. They don't need to be gay. They don't need to be from Puerto Rico. They can all put on that mask. They can all put on that same costume. They can go out there and do heroic things. What we do is much more important than what we are. But that's all I got for this video right now. Thank you for watching this Jalapeno Milk. There's going to be more content like this coming your way. More takes on things in pop culture, getting ready for the PS5 launch and all the excitement surrounding that. Thank you so much for being subscribed, and I'll talk to you again very soon.